the podcast with Dan Gardell and Greg Evans.
Hello, welcome back to the 1874 podcast. Absolutely no idea if this is working or not, if we've got audio, because we've basically got a new producer today because Adam's on holiday. So do let us know in the chat if you can hear me and that everything's running okay. That would be much appreciated. I'm joined by global Greg Evans to look on the last 7 days at Villa Park, although we'll probably just mainly be looking at the Newcastle defeat at the weekend. And of course, when we've had a bad weekend and things are pretty glum, getting Greg Evans on the show, cheer everyone up, getting Greg here. That'll really help everyone's mood. Greg, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I can't stop smiling. I don't know, for some reason it's something to do with this initialising that was just trying to get in.
Yeah.
Are we actually on now? Because
we are on,
like
Greg.
We've been
trying to get on. It's literally about 5 minutes to initialise and get on the pod, but we're here now, and people are enjoying it already in the chat, I can see.
Good, that's good to know. I mean, it was obviously a disappointing weekend, wasn't it? You know, it was horrible to watch the result unfold like that. I just think there's no way to dress it up nicely. It was a really, really bad performance, a really bad result. Everything that come with it as well was horrible, really. But I think once you just switch off from the game and you realise it's literally just one game and there are 37 remaining, and whatever happened on Saturday will not define Villa's season, you can just step away and think, look forward to the next one. And I firmly believe Villa will get it right at the weekend and make amends, and all will be forgotten.
It's just, football's a killer, isn't it? Because I was so looking forward to the season starting. I think I've watched 5 games this weekend, but obviously the Villa result kind of makes or breaks your weekend. But it was just the fact that it was the most optimistic I think every Villa fan has ever been at the start of the season. And within about 20 minutes, you lose one of your best players probably for the season. It was horrible. And to be honest, even if we hadn't lost, I think some of my enjoyment of the game was spoilt by what happened to Tyrone Mings. But then to just get absolutely pummeled by what is a really good side. I must say, Newcastle are an unbelievable side. Tonali in midfield looked absolutely unbelievable, and he'll add to what was already a really good team. But it was more the fact that it's the hope that kills you, isn't it, with football? Because everyone was so buoyant, and now, obviously, after the Buendia injury, the Mings injury and the result, things are going to feel a little bit flatter. But I think what you've said is crucial, that it is only one game, home game against Everton next week, who are pretty soulless, I would say. Everton, like last season, it's a good chance to bounce back from opening day misery and get 3 points. So all's not lost, but you can't help but look back and think it's been a bad few days for Aston Villa.
Yeah, and look, first and foremost, let's hope Tyrone Mings and Buendia can both come back fitter and stronger. And look, the next few days and weeks are going to be really tough for both of them. Tyrone has obviously been through all this 8 years ago, I think, was it 8 years ago, 2015? 8 years ago, yeah. Wow, I mean, very long time. He's had an exceptional run really at Villa since joining on loan, and then turning that loan move into a permanent one. He's hardly missed a game really through injury. So for the last 4 or 5 years, he's been very durable, and shown what a quality player is. And although he's been through this previously, it's still going to be so tough for him these days and weeks ahead. So look, hopefully he can come back stronger, and the same for Buendia as well. As for Villa, I think it's going to be difficult for them. Yeah, all of a sudden Villa have gone from having a very strong squad with 2 players in almost every position and lots of quality backup options. So you're now looking at thinking, you're questioning everything again, aren't you? You're almost looking at it and thinking, well, we might have to play this player instead of this player now. Is this player got enough experience in the Premier League? Is this player ready to do this? It's just, there's so many more questions that need answering at the moment, and we're just not going to know whether it really is going to affect Villa until they keep playing games. So let's just hope that, the games, you look through the fixture list and you think that Villa will have enough to get through some of the next few weeks anyway. I just hope that, for example, Diego Carlos doesn't have a recurrence of his injury. I hope that he's not, hope there aren't issues that are still holding him back, because he hasn't played in the Premier League. We've seen him come off the bench against Newcastle, and he played 2 games previously. So we don't know if he's good enough to play in the Premier League yet. I'm sure he will be, because he's succeeded in Spain and won the Europa League with Sevilla previously. So he arrived at Villa with a massive pedigree, and Pau Torres. The hope ideally would have been to slowly nurture him in, but you're having to bring him on in St James's Park when Villa are already down, and it's horrible, isn't it? So yeah, it's not been a great week after such an uplifting 3 or 4 months previously. But let's hope that victory at the weekend can hopefully change things.
Yeah, we won't do the game to death because obviously a few days have passed now. If you do want to hear my thoughts on the game, then go and watch the Claret and Blue podcast, because I did a show with Rollo straight after the game, and we tried to be as reasonable as possible, which I think we achieved considering it was straight after the game. So if you want to hear in-depth thoughts about the game, go and watch that on the Claret and Blue channel. But I just wanted to point out a couple of things for the reasons of why I think it turned into such a heavy defeat, Greg. So I basically want to run them by you, and you tell me whether I'm correct or not. So in the second half, Villa ended up with personnel on the pitch, and in terms of positions and formation, it was just something that they never would have worked on through the week. Everything they'd worked on through the week went completely out the window. There's no way they worked on Tielemans playing from the left. There's no way they worked on a defence that turned into a back five without Tyrone Mings. So it did look all over the place at times in the second half. But I would say it's probably because of those reasons, because everything they'd done in the week, everything they'd planned for, just ended up getting completely ripped up.
Everything went against them, didn't it? They conceded the early goal, lost a key defender really early on, had to change the formation at half time, had Douglas Luiz on a very early booking, so he was sort of running a tightrope, for the whole time. There were just so many issues to deal with, and look, that's what the manager gets paid the big bucks to fix it for. Unfortunately, on this occasion, Newcastle were just too good. They were just too strong. I don't think they lost a game last season at home, did they?
They lost to Liverpool.
Did they lose one game, right?
When Pope got sent off. I remember that. That game.
So I'm pretty sure they only lost one game then at home all season. So Villa knew they were going there anyway, and it was going to be difficult. When you go 1-0 down so early, it's so hard. Then to get back and then concede so quickly after, you're just thinking, it's a double blow. But I'm trying to move on from it. I just think that there were a lot of bad things. It was, there's no way to dress it up nicely. The high line was horribly exposed, and the biggest worry I've got now going forward for Villa is that Konza and Mings and the fullbacks, of course, had worked at ways to master that high line last season, and there were times where it was very, very close and they were almost exposed on plenty of occasions. I think of Brentford, I think of Brighton on the last game of the season, I think of the Tottenham game quite late. Tottenham, the penultimate game of the season, was it? Yeah. It was, so close. There were a lot of opportunities that were almost given up, but Villa played that masterfully and just were able to do it. Konza and Mings knew how to do that. Now there's no Mings, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for Carlos. Torres will know how to play that line because he did it with Emery anyway. But he's coming into the Premier League, and we just don't know if he's going to be ready or good enough for the Premier League yet until he's played in it. So it's going to take a few weeks to see. I'm not too concerned, but I just think that there might be some issues against some of the better teams.
You could see with the offside trap and the high line, Konsa and Torres just weren't on the same page, and you wouldn't expect them to be because they got, like we say, Torres got completely thrown into it. But you make a valid point about that high line last season and how they'd done so much work on it and they'd mastered it. Probably 3 of the 4 defenders that were heavily involved in that high line aren't going to be in the team now because Ashley Young's gone, Moreno's injured, and Mings is now injured as well. So you're left with just Konsa, who's worked on it consistently on a consistent basis. So it's essentially become now a completely new back four, really. Konsa's going to be surrounded with people who weren't a major part of that 10-game run and weren't a part of mastering that high line. So it is going to be difficult. Thankfully, they've got a week on the training ground. I guess the big thing is, although there is concerns, and normally after everything that's happened in the last 7 days, I would be losing my mind. But because of the manager, I'm not. I still think losing that game, first game last season against Bournemouth the way they did, that definitely concerned me more than losing 5-1 to Newcastle does, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I just look back to the Bournemouth game last year, and that it sent shockwaves through the club. That did, that wasn't in the script at all. It wasn't even a consideration. Villa went to Newcastle knowing that they potentially might lose the game, and that if they did, it wouldn't be the end of the world. The 5-1 scoreline, of course, is disappointing. And if this comes in the middle of the season or on the back of lots of other defeats, then it's really worrying. But because it's so early on, I'm not too concerned yet. When I look back at last year and just what happened, it was very clear that. Gerrard wasn't picking the right players. I just think back to the team selection at Bournemouth that
It's
time.
awful.
Didn't play Watkins. He didn't play Louise. He didn't play Mings. He didn't play Buendia. And then towards the end of the season, those were the four of the players that were really key to Villa flying up the league. So the the there were causes for there were concerns very early on after Bournemouth. I don't think there are this year. I back the manager to go and get it right.
Yeah, he's an elite manager, isn't he? He'll have been in this situation before where it's just important that it doesn't suddenly become two, 3 games at the start of the season lost in a row, because then you do start to have problems. I think Villa did that well at the back end of last season. They lost a couple of games to Wolves and Manchester United, but they didn't let it carry on. They got a result after that game and put a stop to it. You have to do that. If you have a defeat, it's so important to just bounce back in the next game so it doesn't become that bad run and things don't become negative. I guess the thing that we saw that we liked in the I will say actually in the first half, I thought Villa gave Newcastle a really good game at St James's Park. We could have quite easily gone in level, but Moussa Diaby looks a step up from players that Villa have brought in as wide forwards previously, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's one game again, isn't it? And I'm trying not to get too carried away in the same way I'm not getting too down about the defeat. But yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? He's good to watch. He's good fun.
Lively boy.
I like the look of him a lot. I think we're going to see some really exciting times with him in a Villa shirt. I think he looked really up for it as well, which was more important. There were times where it didn't quite go for him, and he was making it known that he was frustrated. There was a time where Cash missed the great opportunity, wasn't it, for Cash, and Diaby was really close, and he was clearly frustrated at it. I like to see that from players, especially new players, because it shows that they care. But yeah, I think he's going to link up well with Watkins. I think he's going to have a lot of fun in a Villa shirt, and he's going to become a fan's favourite very quickly, I think. So yeah, I'm probably getting a bit too carried away, but there were great signs, weren't there?
You can't not be excited by a performance like that in your debut at St James's Park. Could have arguably scored again in the first half as well. He just looked electric, and that's probably been one of my criticisms of Villa over the last few years. I'd never felt as if there was enough directness and pace in the team, and I think he just absolutely ticks both those boxes, Greg.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it previously, haven't we? That Villa have stepped up a level now in terms of the players that they've bought. As we're recording this podcast as well, Zaniolo from Galatasaray, we understand he's close to moving on loan as well. So we'll try and update as we can. But just going back to Diaby, you look back through the wingers that Villa have signed since moving up into the Premier League. They've gone up a level every single time. You've moved on from Trezeguet and El Ghazi to Bertrand Traore to. There's one more to Leon Bailey, and then obviously Diaby. I thought Bailey had a disappointing game again. Obviously the fans were very quick to get on his back now because he's just not performing to the level that many hoped he would. Thought he had a tough day again, marking that side of the pitch with Newcastle in such good form down that side. But yeah, just didn't really see enough of him going forward either. And you wonder whether Jadon Philogene is now a better option or an option to consider at least going into the Everton game.
So at home, I'm thinking I'd probably play Coutinho in a game like that against Everton, where you think it's going to probably be quite tight because you imagine they'll be quite compact. I think Coutinho's a couple of bits in pre-season. I just think Villa need a bit of a spark in there. I think no
some fight. They don't no disrespect to Coutinho. We know he's technically brilliant, and the players talk about.
He's barely giving us any fight.
Well, no, but you're going to come up against a Sean Dyche team who, okay, it's very stereotypical, but they're going to be fighting for their lives now. Every single game that they play, if they're not fired up, then they're probably going to go down. That's their situation. So they've got to fight, and if Villa aren't ready if Villa haven't got players that are willing to do that, then I'm not sure Coutinho's the answer. But yeah, equally so, he's Leon Bailey. I'd like to see Villa Jean give him a go. I
We're
think
talking
he's
about
had a good.
Zaniola. Is Zaniola the answer for that kind of thing for five? I'm not convinced that he is. He's a good player. He's a player, obviously, that Monchi knows. But I presume, would he have been coming in anyway? Or is he a pure replacement for Buendia?
He's a player. No, he's a player that's been on the radar previously. He's very, very much pushed by Monchi. He didn't directly sign him when he was at AS Roma, Monchi, but he obviously worked with him.
Yeah.
He was at the club when he was signed, but it wasn't him who pushed it. But he liked the player and has obviously remained on his radar since, and has been somebody that Villa have been tracking since Monchi has arrived. So what we got to point out is that it's not just one individual signing a player now at Villa. It's a very collective thing. The scouts will and the data department will work together, and the manager obviously will have the overriding say. But there'll be lots of discussions when players are coming in. So I think Villa are going to. So no, he was a player that would have been coming in anyway. Without Buendia. And he's set back. But I think what Villa are going to find now is that they will have to be reactive. It's not a case of them being proactive and still going after players who are on their radar, because I was led to believe that Villa were as good as done in the transfer window. The movements that I was expecting was Cameron Archer either moving and that freeing up space for a striker to come in, and Zaniola as another option. But after that was it. So if Villa do get any other players in, that will be purely reactive.
Do you think they will? Do you think they will do that now? Do you think they have to with Buendia being now? Because Buendia's Premier League ready, isn't he? He's played this, will be his third season with Villa now. Zaniola comes in now. I feel like it adds a bit of unknown into the mix. Hasn't had the best 12 months either. Was brilliant for Roma. Was it the season before last when they won the Conference League? I want to say, he's a good player, but I feel like it's very, very unknown. I know Emery can improve players. We've seen that. It's very unknown. I will also say at the moment, Villa's left-hand side is completely missing. Moreno and Ramsey. That's massive. They're two of Villa's key players, I would say. And I think we suffered by McGinn having to play on a different side, because then we lost him on the right-hand side. I think that was another reason where it just felt like we never really had any control of the game on Saturday.
Well, I mean, Villa finished Villa were in the second half without four of their outfield players who did so well and helped Villa fly up the league last season. No Moreno, no Ramsey, no Mings, and
Buendia.
And no Buendia, of course, yeah. So the questions that I was asking during the summer when Villa were bringing in new players were, are these players going to be any better than the current players anyway? And that's when you're spending €90 million on two players. And I'm thinking, are they going to be any better? We don't know that yet. And now the fact that Villa have actually lost some of their players that were already there, the onus now is on the new players. They have to be better, else Villa are going to struggle. And, all of a sudden you've gone from having potentially Bailey and Buendia and Torres as very good substitutes to now having to probably have to play Bailey, have to play Torres, and you're looking at your bench and it's a bit weaker. Young Kellyman and Philogene were on the bench last week, and Archer. They're three young lads, aren't they? It's like they're not proven Premier League players. All of a sudden, the squad's starting to look a little bit stretched again. And it's a shame, because it was gearing up so nicely, wasn't it? It was all looking like it was starting to fall into place, and I still don't think it's the end of the world. I still think Villa have got a very good squad, and they might do a couple more. They might do another player after Zaniolo, and that might strengthen them. But
I just can't get over the fact.
It's just frustrating, isn't it? Because you feel sorry for the club almost and the owners, because they put a lot of money into it. Willing to sort of really push the boundaries every single year. And you look back even to the start of the Premier League. When Villa returned to the Premier League, Wesley and Tom Heaton got injured. Nassif Sawiris and Wes Edens, they always were there to put more money in. Okay, Pepe Reina and Buama Samata were not the ideal replacements, but the money was given to them to come in. When John McGinn got injured, there was a replacement.
Barely.
Yeah, maybe I should move on from that.
I'm not sure,
But every time,
not sure this analogy's working, Greg, to be honest. So far, we're talking about Samatta and Danny Drinkwater. I'm
but you know
not sure
what I'm
this
saying.
analogy's
Look, you know,
working.
the owners, credit to them. They always put the money in their pockets, and they always do pull it off. You know, when Villa thought they were going to lose Douglas Luiz on the final day of the last transfer window last summer, they put the money in the pocket to get Dendoncker in as well. So you know, look, they've always paid. They've always invested, haven't they? So
They're not a problem. The owners are. They're not at all. I just can't get. Buendia is a big miss. I'm not saying he's not, and I feel sorry for him as well with his injury. I just can't get over the loss of Mings. I'd say Mings is probably in the top 3 players Villa can't afford to get injured, along with Watkins and Martinez. And obviously,
yeah,
he's done probably for the season now. I just think it's such a huge loss, and I am worried about the makeup of that defence now, because I think you're right. I think the plan would have been to integrate Torres slowly. I think you'd have seen him in the first few weeks playing as left back. He'd definitely played left back on Sunday against Everton. I think ease him in slowly. Let Cash bomb up that right hand side, because I think for home games where you're going to dominate possession, he's going to be very, very useful. It's the games like Saturday where we saw him where it concerns me a little bit, the physical side, just the Newcastle just press. I know not every team will play like Newcastle, but you take my point in away games when things get a little bit physical and you've got people running at him and he doesn't have Mings sweeping up behind him. That's the bit that worries me.
And this is what I said a couple of weeks ago when we did the pod after Torres was signed. You know, there were question marks over Pau Torres because he doesn't play for Spain. He's lost his place in the Spanish team, and no big club, despite almost every one of them being linked with him, came in for him. So sometimes you have to look a little bit deeper and think, well, why didn't any of those clubs come in for him? Now it's incredibly early to say that he's not cut out for the Premier League.
I'm not saying that,
and neither of us are. But
no.
You know, Unai Emery believes in him. He had him at Villarreal, and it worked with him. And he's seen his qualities. So we got to trust him that he can do it at Villa. I think he's a good player from what I've seen. The physical side of things has always been the thing that's let him down. Whether he could play alongside a Diego Carlos and a Konza, or just Diego Carlos,
maybe it'll be that.
We'll see, and some of that. But yeah, it's a shame to lose Mings, because I think Villa fans like going to the games and seeing Tyrone Mings playing. I think they can resonate with him. Do you know what I mean?
McGinn, isn't it? Long serving.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, he knows the fabric of the club now. His performances were good enough last year to get him back into the England squad, and rightly so. That Rick that he had in him had disappeared, hadn't he? He became a reliable, consistent defender. And it's just going to be hard for someone to come and fill those big boots, because, you know, he's a top defender.
He does everything, like set pieces. He wins the headers, clears them.
And he's the tallest player in the team, and Villa are a very short team.
Yeah, people don't realise how quick he is. Like, his recovery pace is exceptional. He's so quick. Tyrone Mings, if you're playing a high line, he's perfect for that. His distribution's really good as well. He's really good at playing through the lines. He's a leader. He organises that back four. Just everything that I think is important in a centre-back, he provides Villa. And I'm not trying to be negative. That's not what I'm doing. But I'm worried about how that defence works without him. I'm worried. I think individually they're all good players, all good defenders. But I just think when Mings isn't there, those players aren't going to be as good. They're not going to be as effective. And I'm just worried that defensively it's all going to fall down without Mings. We saw how busy Emi Martinez was at the weekend. You know, he made a couple of actually incredible saves in the second half. Villa did get pummeled, but it definitely could have been a lot worse in that second half. It was at times like Emi was looking for Tyrone Mings, because he couldn't believe what he was seeing and how open it was. And I'm not negative. I'm really positive. I believe in this manager. I believe in these players. But I do think that loss of Mings is just huge, and I don't know what they're going to do about it.
Yeah, and look, you know, the high line in general, I think it's something that was heavily discussed last year. When it was good, it was good. When it was bad, it was bad. You know, it's as simple as that. But it was good way more often than it was bad. And the fact that Mings knew how to play that had almost mastered it towards the end, because Villa were not conceding goals, remember, and Mings was a big part of that defence. I think you're right. I think a lot of it does break down. This whole line of conversation feels very disrespectful towards Konza, because he has been
He's been brilliant.
50% of that for a long time as well. And when Villa are good, Konza is good as well. So, but
they're a good partnership. They're a good partnership.
Yeah, and because we don't know what Konza and Torres, or Konza, Torres and Carlos, or Konza and Carlos are like, because we haven't seen them play together. It's just too soon to say. So, it might just need a little bit of experimenting and seeing how Villa can do it. The high line in general, I think this year as well, is something that defending teams are going to have to look at. Liverpool are another team. You look at the two real teams with high lines, Liverpool and Villa, isn't it, in the Premier League? And you think, with the new offside rule favouring the attackers, it's quite risky, isn't it? It's becoming
we
more
got done
and more
marginally,
riskier.
didn't we, for a couple of goals as well on Saturday? Like,
that's what I mean, it's favouring the attackers this year with the shoulder, and the new lines and all that. But you've seen Martinez come racing out to try and clear up. If he keeps having to do that, he's going to get sent off at some point.
Yeah. He's got the time wasting to all the things Emmy likes doing, or that he's involved in. You get a yellow card for that nowadays.
All out, yeah.
He could get a record.
Be telling him to stop trash talking attackers next.
I think they have told you can't do that from penalties and stuff now, can you? You can't do anything like that anymore. Emmy's in big. I mean, that one where he had to come out and sweep it because the high line got exposed. I mean, I don't think that was ever a red card. You're more reasonable than me. It was never a red, was it? Professional foul, yes, but not a red.
Yeah.
No,
I'll take, I've seen them given.
Yeah, I wouldn't have.
But maybe unfortunate if it was. But he's got to be careful though, because if Villa continues to get exposed like that, then there will be a time where he'll get it wrong and he'll get sent off.
AVFC makes a good point, and I noticed this yesterday when I was watching the Liverpool-Chelsea game. They started showing the lines on Sky again. There's no lines in the Villa game. I didn't know whether anyone was offside, onside. Couldn't see
lines in Liverpool. I didn't see them.
Yeah, I had the lines yesterday. Yeah, I noticed that. It annoyed me actually, because I was wondering if we were going to see them in the Newcastle game. They didn't even come up at the end.
Did they? I don't remember seeing them.
No, they were there yesterday. They don't show you while they're working it out, but they show you at the end when the decision's been made.
Right. Okay.
They didn't do that in the Villa game. We didn't get to see any of it, so couldn't see how tight things were, but they looked tight for a couple of those goals, I would say.
The VAR thing's still so annoying, because it's so much worse for people that are in the stadium. It's like, if you're watching it on TV, you know if it's onside or offside before those in the stadium know, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not good. That's like the experience should be, if you're paying to be at the game. I mean, to be fair, everyone pays a lot of money to watch it on Sky as well. But if you're at the game, you should know what's happening on the pitch and going on in that room. And you have never got a clue. I've always said that. That's been a massive problem with VAR. It shows a bit all over the place at the moment, but I think it's to be expected, because it's just, I think everyone's still in shock, really. I know I definitely feel like I'm still in shock a little bit. A few people have asked about Jack Harrison, because Fabrizio Romano was tweeting that, Villa is done, they've hijacked it, and then suddenly, he's going to Everton on a season-long loan with no option to buy. Were Villa ever in for Jack Harrison?
Villa were certainly interested and have been interested in previous windows in him. He hasn't played this season, he's injured, so Villa aren't going to be signing a player that's injured when they've got injured players already. And it was in the treatment room. It was very well down the line with Everton already. So, I think David Ornstein was reporting accurately on that.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah. I don't know if it was Romano who tweeted that here we go. I think he even tweeted David
Ornstein was reporting it accurately that he was moving to Everton.
Of course he was. David Ornstein knows absolutely everything and everyone in football. David Ornstein, one of the most professional men I've ever worked with in my life. Let's get rid of Jacob Tanswell as well. Comes in to start reporting on Villa and we get pumped 5-1 on the first game. Get rid of him. I've had enough of him already. I've got another theory to run past you, a bit light-hearted. People may have seen this on my social media today. Those kits, those players look like they've been water bombing in the pool after 30 seconds. There is something wrong with them shirts, in my opinion. Why do the Villa players look? I don't know why I'm asking you, you'll know the answer to this. Why do the Villa players look so sweaty from 30 seconds into a football match?
I'd love to have the answer for you on this. I have no idea, Dan. So maybe you should share what your experiment was and if there are any findings from that.
Have a look on my social media if you haven't had a look at it already on Twitter or Instagram. I posted my findings. Went on the Peloton today in my Villa shirt because I don't usually sweat that much when I do exercise, but I was warm in that Villa shirt, that pro shirt. There's something in that makes you excessively sweaty, and I do wonder, is this a contributing factor to Villa losing 5-1 to Newcastle? Is it something to do with the shirt?
Sounds like an athletic feature. This.
I'm on it. I'll get on to Jacob, see if he fancies writing about it. I might have to do another experiment in last season's shirt just to see what my findings are there. So I might do that tomorrow. Try it in the season before shirt and see whether I end up as hot. But there's something in that new shirt. I don't know what it is, but it's and it also broke my heart when I picked the shirt up and it's got 5 Mings on the back. I also do have to take a bit of responsibility for the Tyrone Mings injury because, unfortunately, when talking about Zaniolo in our match preview, I did reference the fact that he had a poor injury record before he came to Villa, and I said I'll probably end up cursing him here, but his injury's been really good ever since. And of course, after I say that, he ends up getting a terrible injury, so I do have to take a little bit of responsibility for that myself. I did have quite a number of tweets when he got carried off, so I did feel like I needed to address that. Yeah, people weren't happy with me for that. I mean, you've done it before. You've tweeted something during a game, and then we've conceded straight after, and people have had a go at you. And you've always said, just a reminder that I don't control what happens. So it's probably the same. I don't have any control over what happens on a
football. Probably, it's definitely.
No, definitely. And
you
also,
definitely have no control, and neither do I.
Tyrone,
some people need to take their anger out on someone, don't they? So
yeah, Tyrone wouldn't want me to get abused for what I said in the match preview. That just wouldn't be what he'd want for me. So yeah, it was about 5 or 6 tweets, but I did feel bad, if I'm honest. What else did we say we were going to talk about, Greg? I can't even remember. What else did we?
I suppose it was just really how Villa are going to react from these injuries. Losing Buendia on the eve of the season, now losing Mings. Do Villa need another centre back? I mean, probably they do. In an ideal world, they would. In an ideal world, they would. But because they went into the season with 4 really good centre backs, and Callum Chambers as another option, and Leander Dendoncker, who could possibly play in there.
Kamara can play there, actually.
Yeah, I mean, but you wouldn't want to be resorting to the Boubacar Kamara playing a centre back, would you? Okay, makeshift, has played there in the past, and he could do a job there. But yeah, I mean, if there's an experienced player that you could get in on loan, it might work.
This feels very much like the rounds of going for Jan
Bednarek. Yeah, I know. I'm wary of going down this line, and the fact that Chambers has been around and obviously worked under Emery for 2 different clubs now. So Emery knows exactly what he's going to get from Chambers, and he might be somebody they might have to turn to a little bit more often now in Europe perhaps, or at the end of games. They've got 3 very good centre-backs still, Konza, Diego Carlos and Pau Torres. Yes, we've gone over some of the flaws and some of the issues that might occur in the weeks ahead. But I think if you can get Torres settled, if you can get Carlos confident playing again, because he's probably not too far off it now.
It's a worry, that, isn't it?
He's not too far off it. Look, coming back from an Achilles injury is tough. It's harder probably than coming back from an ACL injury. So, let's hope he can get some games under his belt and then just move on and almost forget about it. But I know it's easier said than done. We're just going to have to suck it and see it, aren't we, for a couple of weeks and see what happens.
Not a massive fan of that term on the podcast, to be honest, Greg. But yeah, I am a little bit worried. I am concerned because I just think the plans have just been ripped up now. Everything they would have thought that they might be able to do is just gone defensively. I think Constance would have played right back quite a lot of the time, and I now look at it and think, well, we can't do that now because he has to play right centre back. Constance's going to have to play nearly every game now, I would say.
If you remember when Pau Torres was signed, there was a split discussion between the supporters of whether Torres was coming in to replace Mings or play alongside him, and there were people amongst the Villa supporters who thought that he should come in and play ahead of Mings anyway. So for those guys, it's not too much of a big deal now.
Well, they'll say that it is a big deal shortly. Villa's record without Tyrone Mings, and I get this is a completely different team now with a different manager, and it's a lot more positive. But when Mings hasn't played for Villa, they have shipped goals left, right, and centre. So I saw in the chat someone said, 1 in 12 we've won, and that was against Norwich.
1 in 13, yeah, 1 in
1 in
13.
13.
I wrote a piece last year I wrote an article last year when Villa lost when Mings didn't play at Man City. They lost 3-0, I think, at Man City.
3-1, Greg. We scored.
3-1. Sorry, it's always
worry about that.
Always tough going there, obviously, but
yeah.
I remember writing an article after, and the stats were that Villa had only won once in 12 games that he hadn't played, which is, says it all, doesn't it?
I remember some tonkings in there as well, just some real bad days. I remember we lose to Watford 3-0, and Mings wasn't playing. It was just horrendous. It's not good when Mings doesn't play, but this is a different Villa now. We should say that Villa are in a completely different place as a club now, and he has been very durable over the last few years, and unfortunately that's changed at the weekend. But he's been available a lot, but there just seemed to be one of these injuries every single season. Even the lockdown season, we were going quite well in fifth, and we lose Grealish for 3 months, and not the same. Just something happens to us every single year, and it's getting on my nerves now. It really is. We'll wrap up soon, but before we do, and Lee's probably going to kill me here because I didn't tee it up when I said we were going to do it, but we do need to hear from our sponsors, NordVPN. So hopefully Greg and I's face will disappear very shortly.
If you guys are getting fed up with missing live football, then our new show sponsor, NordVPN, might be able to help you out. NordVPN is a secure and private service which works on pretty much any device, including your laptop, mobile, and smart TV. If you want to watch, let's say, some US content, it allows you to appear like you're in that country. And while you're connected, no one can find out what you're doing, including your internet service provider. The service also has threat protection baked in to protect you from intrusive website ads and malware, which is pretty dab handy. A part of NordVPN supporting 1874, the Aston Villa channel, they have given us an exclusive deal of up to 65% off and 4 months for free, which also includes Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All you have to do is go to www.1874.io/NordVPN and sign up. All the details will also be in the description. And as always, we are truly grateful to anyone that signs up. We know that money is tight. But if you think NordVPN will help you out, it will also help us to keep the channel running.
Get that code changed. That code doesn't fit in with current branding. That needs to be changed as soon as possible. I'll get Adam to get on that when he gets back from his holidays. Greg, is there anything else that we need to discuss, or are we done? I think
we're done for now. Yeah. Well, let's try and let's hope it's a more positive outlook next week. I firmly believe it will. I fancy Villa. I'm not feeling Everton at all. I fancy Villa to go and make amends at the weekend and get it right. I think what the players will be going through this week is a lot of video analysis. We know that Emery's big on that. And look, if they come out and they're a little bit apprehensive, then I'm sure the fans will let them know. But I expect them to be straight onto the front foot and just trying to cut out some of the mistakes from last week.
Come on, Villa. It'd be good to be back at Villa Park as well. I feel like I haven't been there for ages, so it is always good to be back on a first day. I felt brilliant going in the start of last season where we were crap. So, this should be this should be better, shouldn't it? And Ashley Young, don't you even think about ruining my day by doing anything silly, Ashley Young. Know where your allegiances lie, and they're not with Everton. Let's go then, Greg. Thank you ever so much for joining me. Greg's not mentioned FFP. I've not mentioned working at Sky. So it's been a good podcast. No one can have a go at us for this one. Hopefully we have cheered you up in some way. Thank you to Lee Haynes for stepping in and producing his producing debut today. Adam decided to take a last-minute holiday across the other side of the world without telling anyone, which was really, really helpful at the start of the season. So thanks to Adam for that. But yeah, Lee stepped in and it's all been good as far as I know. There'll be a match preview with Dave Reed and myself later on in the week. Thank you to everyone that's engaged in the chat as well. Been nice to hear from everyone. Have a good Monday. Enjoy the Monday night football. Come on, Manchester United. Up the Villa.